Okay. Thank you for coming on, Candice.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Jerry Seinfeld said that when he gets introduced to come on to a show or something, the worst thing the interviewer can do is build them up, say, "Hey, this is the greatest comedian ever." It's too much pressure. So I'm holding back from totally kind of building you up. So I'll let the person decide at the end of this if you really are everything I think you are. So a little bit of background. I met you here in the neighborhood, and you teach yoga among many other things, and we'll slowly get into that. But I'll get into, first of all, how did you get to where you are and what you do?
That's a great question. Well, what I do for work,
Yeah.
is I teach yoga and I do Thai yoga massage, and I'm also offering inner work guidance. I would say how I got into what I do is a really, really, it has a lot of backstory. Yeah. I would say it started, I'll give you the short of the long. And that would be, in my past life, in my 20s, I was living what a lot of people would say was just a typical life of a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, partying lots, enjoying life lots. And
You party, Candice? I would never.
And that really, and I was living in Whistler, and I was snowboarding, and there were a lot of really fun, enjoyable times. But I also realized that there was also a lot of suffering, a lot of, I would at that point have called it depression, a lot of sadness, a lot of conflict within myself, within what I was doing, where I was at, and it was amplified by the lifestyle that I was living. And it wasn't until I ended a really significant relationship, and I also ended a job that I had been in for a long time, and I was in a lot of pain, and so much so that I would say that it seemed like what people would call a breakdown. And I felt like I had hit rock bottom. And from there, I remember this one very significant point where I had been crying for days, that kind of like, what do I do now? Where do I go? Who am I? What is this life about? And this just a lot of inner struggle. And I remember I was staying at a friend's, and I was going outside for a cigarette.
Candice.
And my face, I just felt like my face was soaked in tears. And, I felt like probably I hadn't showered in a couple days. It really did feel like that rock bottom. And I remember going out, and I was living in Whistler, very, very beautiful place. And I was sitting on her doorstep, and the sun was shining in through the trees, hitting this mossy rock, and it just, the sparkle on the moss where the water is, sitting on top, and the light's hitting, and that sparkle really caught my eye. And I was looking at these little mushrooms, and I thought, and this was just me gazing at nature in its purest form. And I just, in that moment, knew that there was something more, that life was more than suffering and hardships, and that there was a lot of beauty out there. And so my next steps after that, which were months of taking time for myself, taking space for myself, was asking the question, how could I live better? How could I do better? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, before we were starting, the theme of this is how to lean in.
Yes, that's my method. It's how to lean in.
And that's what the listener will get from this. So is that the moment?
Yes, where I really felt like I stopped resisting. I don't even know what, but I stopped that resistance melted away, and I leaned into to what I would say love, which is nature, which is purity, which is oneness, which is I can explain more later, but into and I wouldn't have said this at that time, but into the feminine, and so which is the earth, which is not looking at things as parts. It's looking at things as whole and possibility and expansion and nourishment.
Were you there prior to getting into your teens, and then you went a certain way? Are you going back to who you were?